On behalf of the Professional Baseball Strength and Conditioning Coaches Society, I'd like to welcome you to the PBSCCS Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Messina.
All right, everybody, I'm here with John Perry of the Texas Rangers organization. John, thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate your time. Tell the listeners about yourself, if you would, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. My name's John Perry. I'm the rehab strength coach for the Texas Rangers, going into my second year there. Previously, I worked for the New York Mets, and then I worked in college sports for about 3 years. Worked at University of Georgia, Arkansas Little Rock, and then at Georgia Tech. Baseball was the primary sport I worked with all the way through. And I mean, baseball is pretty much what got me into this field. So it's something I'm really passionate about, and I'm trying to just help out other players get through their injuries and get through some tough times in their lives. So it's a little bit about me.
Yeah, I feel like we've all either been around the game a long time and just want to help others, or like we fell in love with baseball at some point in time. And so you've been around in the minor leagues a little bit now, and I always like to kick these off with people's best professional baseball story or memory or experience. Just what sticks out the most in your mind so far in your professional baseball career?
Yeah, no doubt. The good things definitely outweigh the bad. My best memory is more of, a couple months long, where in 2019, the team I was with, the Brooklyn Cyclones, we won the New York Penn League championship, which, was a great achievement for the team. And I say that because it truly was a team effort. We didn't have any stud prospects. We didn't have high draft picks come in, at least not till their very end, when guys got brought up. We just had a team that the sum was greater than the parts. We just had a lot of games that we pulled out of our butts, and somehow we won. There was a handful of games, especially in the playoffs, where I'm standing there with the trainers and, we're thinking that this is the end of the run. Like, this is the game where everything's over. And then, something crazy happens, like a triple down the line and then a ball thrown away. And, it ends up being like a little league home run, and bam, like you win the game. So that year, and then working with the trainers, like we had a good staff. Everybody really meshed well together. Everybody had good feel going around the season, working through everything. So, I mean, that 2019 season was a hell of a ride. So.
Yeah, any championship that you can win is always good. And I don't know, some of those ones that you just don't have anybody that sticks out, but it's just a group that comes together and plays hard and plays the game the right way and finds ways to win, is like it's all the more fun. I mean, it's obviously fun to dominate teams too, but in the minor leagues, there's so much movement up and down that you might have some studs and be rolling, and then the next thing you know, they get bumped up and you're like, we got to figure out ways to win and keep competing and everything. So that's a cool story. That you guys all
winning definitely makes everything better.
Yes, it does, for sure. At any level. And the other thing is I have learned this over the years, is you are never out of a ball game in the minor leagues, and you never have secured a win for sure in the minor leagues. I've seen 7-1 in the seventh inning, and like the wheels fall off, and like I don't know if it's good or bad, or if it like makes it more fun, because you never know. Like, hey, we could still come back. Like, we're down 6 runs with 6 outs to go, but we have a chance. And the next thing you know, you win the game.
Exactly.
And then 2 days later, you're on the opposite end of that, and you're like, oh, never mind. So you're never out of a game.
Well, I
in the minor
guess we're
leagues.
even.
Right, exactly. It all kind of balances out for itself anyways. But no, like I said, anytime you can win a championship, for me, at any level, I think is a really cool experience.
No doubt.
So what do you believe in within strength and conditioning that others think you are crazy for believing?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that I believe in that other people think I'm crazy for. And I mean, I'd say that's a good thing. I don't think I'm crazy with any of my training philosophies or methodologies, but there are 2 things that, I full-heartedly believe in, that, and I believe in these things, and they sort of get overshadowed by others. and that's microdosing, especially in terms of, sprint mechanics and acceleration, max velocity, just, speed training in general, and then also training in season. And I'll circle back to microdosing first. I've seen and experienced throughout, 4 or 5 years of being a strength coach where typically, in my experience, microdosing gets better results than just having 2 or 3 sessions dedicated to acceleration or dedicated to mechanics or dedicated to max velocity. And that's simply because guys get more reps throughout the entire week. You think about it, let's say hypothetically Monday, Wednesday, Friday, you work on acceleration at the end of your warm-up. You get guys hot, you get them loose, a little sweat, and then you have 1 or 2 drills, that you can work on acceleration. Let's say a lean tall and fall start, and then maybe, band resistance bounding. And then you circle back around to like a base ceiling start. You do each one of those 3 things throughout the week. I mean, that's 3 different days where guys got reps at that drill and at getting better at acceleration, instead of just maybe 3 total sessions where it's a mismatch of everything. And then like same thing for max velocity. You get the guys hot, you make sure their hamstrings are good and ready to go. And let's say maybe you hit some wickets, or you hit some fly-ins, and then you just hit some more fly-ins maybe to touch at the end so you can really get going on their max V. And then over time, you give that some time, 1 or 2 months, retest them. That also would start the process for me, is you got to have those baseline numbers. That's something you do at spring training or, your first week with the team, whatever it may be, especially something with acceleration. Because in theory, I mean, 10 to 15 yards, your guys, they should be fine. They should be a good coach. That's something you can test, weekly. So in my eyes, microdosing can be something that's more beneficial instead of just having 2 to 3 given sessions a week. Because in the long run, you get 3 sessions a week only on acceleration. You get 3 more sessions a week on max velocity. And you can also mix in some mechanical things in there. That's 6 sessions in 1 week when you think about it, instead of only 3 or 2 even, given, travel and, weather, things like that. And then, circling to training in season, I read a lot from Bob Alejo coming up, and he hits on a lot about how in season training, what he likes to do is you train high intensity and really low volume. Because as we know, as strength coaches, from our own personal training and from training athletes, volume is, sort of what kills guys. 5 sets of 5 or 5 sets of 8 at 70% is going to be a lot tougher the next day than, say, 5 sets of 1 at 85% or 5 sets of 2 at 85%. Volume is going to be the thing that makes guys sore. And so as a strength coach, if you can work around that while still getting higher intensities, by doing single reps, doubles, triples at a higher intensity, you're over the long run throughout the entire season, I think you're going to have better results. That's something that I've experimented with the college teams I've been in charge of, with the pro teams I've been in charge of, and it's worked out really well. And also a lot of times guys will come in and they'll be more amped up for it. They would rather do a heavy double or a heavy single instead of, a set of 5 or a set of 8. That's just, in my experience, that's what I've found. Guys like that stuff better, and they will get after it more for you as well, which helps lead into buy-in, making your job a little bit easier in the long run. So.
Yeah, I don't think you're crazy for either of those things. I think maybe 10 to 15 years ago, those would have been like unheard of. But now it seems like everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people are kind of leaning towards that, higher intensities in season with the lifts, keeping the volume to a minimum, because especially as you move up, like you just play so many games and there's so much practice and there's so much travel that volume, like you said, is really kind of the killer in that situation. But you can keep intensity high, a good chunk of the season, and guys will still keep coming back to you because they're not sore from it. They're keeping their numbers pretty good. Like they feel good on the field. And then same with microdosing is just, for me, being able to do a little bit every day more frequently, just if nothing else, like it gets the guys going, right? Like if you have stretch, and then
100%.
at the end of stretch, you just go play catch. Guys half-ass stretch, like, calling it like it is.
100%. Yeah.
And if you don't have that sprint work at the end, that's almost like that bridge between like the generic warm up and like baseball activity, like I think you miss out on that point of kind of ramping them up a little to get ready for their baseball activity. So even if it's just a little bit every day, like I think that little bit goes a long way in just having them be ready for their baseball activity.
Yep. Absolutely.
So in your mind, what makes a strength and conditioning coach successful? Maybe in general, and then more specifically in professional baseball.
Okay. I'd say in general, my opinion first over everything is communication. In my eyes, this is a people first business that we're in. We don't talk to each other on phones while we're training. We're not at a distance when we're training. You're in the same room, you're together. Like, this is people first in my eyes. And communication has to be on point at that time. You could be the smartest guy in the room. You could be able to, memorize all the Russian textbooks, memorize the NSCA handbook, everything. If you can't communicate what you want out of a session, or what you want a certain exercise or certain drill to look like, and the purpose of that drill, it's not going to matter. Like, the player may be a good dude and be polite and, try to do what you're asking him to. But at the end of the day, communication is paramount in our job. And it's going to go a long way, not only with the players, but also with, front office. If they start, wondering how certain guys are doing, the coaching staff, when you have to let them know, like, hey, this is what we're doing today. This is how it went. This is probably what we're looking at in the next week or two as we go on this road trip. Communication as a strength coach is vital. That's number one in everything that we do. And then the second thing is that base knowledge needs to be there. You can't just go onto Instagram, go onto YouTube, Twitter, whatever, social media, and basically just copy and paste somebody's workout that they put on that got 1,000 views. Like, that's not going to cut it. You need to understand just the baseline methodologies. You need to know energy systems, the muscular system, the cardiovascular system, everything that goes on that basically the NSCA has given us, as far as, us being a CSCS certified, that textbook that they give you, that they expect you to study and that they test you on. Read that, know it, test, pass, and that's sort of your baseline. And, that's not really where your education ends either. That's the foundation for it all. Just like you're building a house and you lay down all the cement and everything that the house is going to go up on before you build it up nice and tall and pretty. That's the way the NSCA handbook is in my eyes. That sort of just lays that foundation so that you can continue to learn. And then with regards to, specifically to baseball, the largest thing that I found and that I've observed is having good feel as a strength coach. And really that actually goes for everybody, really, not just strength coaches, the trainers, the coaching staff, pretty much anybody around. Like, you need to know what guys are going through, and also you need to know sort of where they're going to go through. If you, let's say, for example, you have a 7-hour bus trip that night, it's probably not a great idea to have a heavy squat session in the afternoon before the game. Like, you probably should avoid that a little bit if you can. And then, another example is, let's say you're on a 6-game losing streak, you're on the road. It may be a good idea just to forget the conditioning session that day. Especially don't come in hot at the manager and say, hey, I need some time to do this conditioning session. Have some feel about what's going on. The team's going through a little bit of a slide right now. How about you just have some good rapport with the players and with the manager and the coaching staff, and, catch them next time on the conditioning. So things like that, and understanding that. Another thing too is understanding that some of these players are grown men, like especially the guys who are from overseas, the guys who are already married when they're 19, 20 years old, and they have a kid on the way, or maybe a kid already here, and they're providing for their family. Just know that these guys are going through real life stressors. If you're coming from the college sector, or if this is your first job, some of these guys are have legitimate responsibilities away from the field. It's not like you're working with a college kid who's, he needs to go to study hall. He needs to be there by 7 o'clock. He's got a test tomorrow and all those things. You know, it could be something like, hey, this guy is having a kid that's being born on Thursday. So he's flying out and he's going to be gone for about a week or two because his son is being born. So that's something else. You just need to be aware of what's going on with your players as well, in addition to what's going on the field. So having good feel is really important in baseball. It'll make your life a lot easier, and you know, the sooner you develop it, the better. So.
Yeah, I feel like just about everybody that I ask this question to, when baseball specifically comes up, it is the feel thing. And I don't know if it's in the college setting or if it's in, you know, like soccer or football, or if it's like like I had never heard of feel until I got to baseball. And I did something stupid in rookie ball my first year because I didn't know any better. And they're like, dude, have some feel. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, you know what feel is? Like, you're in trouble, dude. And like, sometimes you learn feel by making those mistakes where like you said, you have a 7-hour bus ride and then the next day you're like, nope, don't care. We got a squat. And then the guys aren't worth anything for 3 days because they're toast. And you're like, I probably should have pumped the brakes a little bit. Like, it's easier to just hear somebody else say it. And maybe that's something good coming out of this podcast for like new coaches coming into baseball. Like, hey, you need to have some court awareness, have some feel. But when I was coming up, this was not a thing. So I was like, I don't know what feel is. So it's just funny that like I've never heard it anywhere other than pro ball. I mean, it's probably a thing, but I don't know.
They probably call it something different in the NBA or in NFL. Like, I don't know. But the crappy thing is like you only learn it, like you said, from messing up and like being at work. Like, you're not going to learn it working in a college or working at a high school. Like, it's going to come from being in pro ball, and you're going to screw up or just, you know, step on some toes. That's when you start to learn and start developing it. So kind of learn by fire a little bit.
Yeah, and you have to have the tough skin when you do something stupid and they call you out on it, because they always call you out on doing something stupid, that you can't take it personal. They're trying to teach you, like, hey, dude, this is your first year. What are you doing? Like, you need to figure this out. So let's kind of ride with that a little bit. Do you have any advice for others in the field, maybe young coaches who want to get into pro ball or just older coaches that have been around a while? Do you have any advice for the listeners?
Probably the best advice, and this is something that, you know, my mentor told me once, is always be open to learning new things, but still have a filter for it. You know, that's kind of a, you know, always be open to new things, a growth mindset. Like, that's kind of a general saying nowadays, general way of thinking. But what he really hit hard to me was have that filter, like critically think about what's going on, like critically think about what you're reading or what you're watching. Because even though the theory may be great or it may be working really well in that environment, you know, maybe it's another sport, you need to be able to think to yourself, can I apply that to what I'm doing? You know, something that's being done, you know, a speed session that's being done with a rugby team, probably, you know, maybe not is going to work in baseball. Just simple, maybe even just from a logistics point of view. Like, you need to be able to critically think about what you can learn and then how you can apply it. I think a lot of people, you know, they're sort of missing the boat on that. Like, they just see somebody who's a really good strength coach or a really good sprint coach or, you know, a really good weightlifting coach, and then they try to implement that blindly in what they're doing at work. And, you know, it's just not the are you going to apply that to your setting? Because there's always a good chance that you're going to have to, you know, fine tune something. That's just the way it is when you're transcending sports and transcending different, you know, cultures and ages and everything. So,
Dude, I love it. And it's taking that growth mindset a step further, right? Like, I'm like the process, right? Everybody talks about the process as this buzzword, right? But the thing is, if your process doesn't lead you anywhere, it's not good. Like, your process still needs to get you results. And it's the same thing here. Like, you can be open-minded to anything and learning and be like, yeah, I love to learn. But the problem is there's so much information out there and on any topic, you can literally contradict yourself. Like squat depth, all our guys squat below 90. Well, no, some of our guys don't. Like, and you can get into any topic and be like that. So you have to have that filter, take in what you can use, filter out what you can't, and then just keep moving forward. Because if you just, everything that comes in, you're like, yep, I learned this. We can use this. It's like when you go to, a seminar or a conference or something, and you hear somebody speak that's this high level strength coach. And I'm guilty of this when I was young. It was like, you hear them and you're like, oh, he's a great strength coach and he's doing this. I got to do this. So like you go to the conference on Saturday, and then on Monday, your team's doing a whole new thing that you learned at the conference. And you're like, well, this doesn't work for us. And it's because you didn't put it through your filter. And I think that comes with time, right? Is like you find your mentors that you trust. You find your sources that you trust. You find reliable information, and then you use it in your setting. But it's a process of figuring things out and filtering. But I love that, taking that open growth mindset a step further, instead of just, I just learn everything, because then you don't learn anything that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, another thing, touching on, like, if you, like you said, you like on a Saturday, you learn something new, Monday, you start implementing it. We have social media nowadays, and we can see things from years back, certain drills that guys are doing, and they look really clean and crisp and they look really good. But we always need to think back to, kind of touching on microdosing again. How does that drill actually going to positively influence the skill you're working on? Because like you said, like, better is better. If you're doing a drill and it looks great and that's something you learn and everybody's, getting on board with it, but nobody gets better, if you do an acceleration drill and it looks great, but, your 10-yard or your 15-yard burst didn't change, it's like, well, what's the point? It's like, you learned it, that's good, but somewhere in the application, it didn't quite line up. And so that's where, going through, thinking about it, filtering it out, and seeing what you can really use. So
yeah, you don't have to always fall for like the new shiny thing that's out there. Like, and I see it all the time. I follow some of my mentors on social media, and I'll see them post an exercise, and then they'll get tagged in something like, hey, I'm doing this exercise with my guys. And it's like, well, if that wasn't in your program 2 days ago and you just learned it, like,
yeah, probably should be doing it.
Yeah. So it's, I don't know. I get it, but I appreciate your thoughts on that, of just adding that filter to your growth mindset. And then that's when you start really taking big leaps forward with your learning.
Yep.
So this is like, I always send the generic question list, and I always have the guest, hey, if you want to add anything, change anything, we can. And you sent me 2 questions, and I'm glad you did. I'm very excited to dive into them. So the first one that you sent that I want to go over here is, how do you cultivate culture and drive or motivate professional athletes in the strength and conditioning setting?
Yeah. So for me, the reason I think that that's sort of a big thing especially in pro baseball, is because it's not a dictatorship like college is. If you worked in college or high school, like it's not one of those things like, here's your program, like here's your paper, or here I put something up new on Team Builder, Train Heroic, whatever sort of app you use. Like, it's not, here it is. You don't like what we're doing, that sucks. There's the door. And the kids, like, they're not going to leave because they know they're going to get punished for it. Like, that's not how it is in pro ball. In the way I sort of conduct everything within the rehab realm is it's much more collaborative. I talk to our trainer. I make sure he's on the same page with me with everything, and vice versa. He talks with me to make sure I'm on the same page with everything. And then we both talk to the player. And then, the collaboration is also what helps create buy-in, especially for new guys. You always have in rehab, there's always new guys filtering in and out, because that's just, the nature of the beast of throwing a baseball, is you're always going to have injuries. But you're always going to have guys filtering in and out. And you better believe that when guys first walk into the weight room, like, there is one, you're going to have a reputation, because people are going to talk about, when they come out of rehab, they're going to talk about everything that went into it. And so you're going to have that reputation going into it. Second is when they walk into the weight room for the first time, they're going to look around. You know, they're going to see how the intensity is. They're going to see the atmosphere that you're building, that you're cultivating. And you need to make sure that that atmosphere is a result of you, not the other way around. You know, you need to find out what's going to get you guys fired up, what's going to have them lift heavy weight, or what's going to have them move that weight really fast, or throw the piss out of the med ball, or, you know, whatever it may be. What is it that's going to create the intent in your training session? And you need to build that up, and you need to water it. You need to make it like a garden. You need to make that grow, because as soon as that new guy walks in, or even an outsider walks in, they're going to see that, and they're going to immediately know, all right, it's time to work. These guys are getting after it. And, you know, granted, there's always going to be, you know, 1, 2 guys. There'll be a handful of guys who, you know, they just don't like lifting. Luckily for strength coaches, the majority, in my opinion, the majority of guys in baseball, they enjoy lifting. They like getting after it. They're a little bit meatheadish, which is good for us. You know, some guys, you just turn on the music, you crank it up, and they get after it on their own. Some guys like competing. Other guys like being challenged one-on-one between you and the player. And then, you know, you have your guys who try to get the beach bod workouts. And so with those guys, you know, I'm sure everybody listening to this will have a player pop in their head who, you know, he squats. Sorry, my door just flew open. He squats 225 and then he calls it a day. You know, it looks easy. It's cake for him, but it doesn't matter. He's done to 225. And then he goes and he does some dumbbell bench, doesn't push himself on that either. And then he goes and he does curls and triceps for 25 minutes and he calls it a day. So with those guys, those are going to be the ones that your culture really will need to, you know, take ground in him. Those are the guys in my eyes that you need to spend more time with. You got to get one-on-one with them. You got to look at them and say, hey man, like what you're doing is not cutting it right now. And especially if you have other guys in the room who are higher level than them, like say if you have a big leaguer in there, those guys you can use as your example. You know, like, hey, this guy's in the show right now. He's busting his ass in here. And you're over here, you're just, you know, not pushing yourself. This will probably be the only time in his career where he will have time to actually build up his body. So you need to be able to communicate with him, get that point across to him without being an ass about it, you know, without stepping on toes, without chewing him out or anything like that, because that will not fly either. You're going to be much more likely that player just says, hey, F you, I'm out of here. He's just going to leave, because it's, like I said, it's not a dictatorship. You know, this isn't college where if some dude just left a workout, he would be running later at practice. That's not how it is in pro ball. That's why it's more of a collaboration. That's why I like to talk with guys to get their input on programs. So those guys are really the ones that you need to get with, talk with them one-on-one, and you still have that atmosphere around them. And in my experience, talking to them one-on-one, man-to-man, it rights the ship pretty quick. You will see that turnaround with them, because a lot of times if you show them that you actually care about them, that you give a crap about them, like it's going to pay dividends for you and for them. It's going to make your job easier, and they're going to start getting after it more in the weight room. You know, don't expect them to become like the best lifter you have or like the guy who works the hardest, but he will get better in my eyes. So that's one thing, like with cultivating a culture, that I think really needs to be around. Like build that atmosphere, make it to where guys, as soon as they walk into that room, as soon as they observe what's going on, a newcomer, an outsider, they know immediately within seconds of walking into that room, this group gets after it. Like this group is going to get better physically. Like it's not negotiable, you know? And then talk to guys who have troubles, you know, one-on-one, man-to-man, and don't waver in anything that you say to them. You know, set the expectation with them. When you tell them that what they're doing is not cutting it, you need to give a concrete example. You need to show them or tell them how they can get better with it. And then don't waver in it. Be so confident in it that player feels your confidence in it, that you know it will work no matter what. It will start buying in. They will start buying in. It's just a matter of time at that point. They'll start getting better. It's just, you know, day by day with those guys. And then those guys who, who are doing great, who are crushing it. I found, blowing those guys up in a good way, or I guess gassing them up, as the players say nowadays, that will also help build your environment. That will help build your atmosphere. If you were to, only go one-on-one with that guy and say, hey, you're doing a great job, he may appreciate that, but the whole group will benefit from recognizing that great performance, that great effort by that one player, especially if it's a guy who everybody sees he's working his ass off day in and day out. That will get recognized by the entire group, and they will see that, and that will help motivate them as well. So that's just a little bit on what I think about building a good culture throughout the weight room. So,
no, a couple of things that come to mind there, especially specifically in professional baseball, is one, we get so much time with these guys that you can have those conversations with guys, those difficult conversations, and be upfront with them, and they might not like it, but they have to keep coming back. Like, they're going to come back. We're going to see each other in the hall. We're going to see each other in the cafeteria. Like, it's inevitable that you're going to run into each other. And I think eventually those things work out and they realize, like, yeah, this guy has my best interest in heart. So I'll listen to him. I'm not happy that he's calling me out, but I see why he's calling me out. So that's a big one for me. And then the other thing is, because we're with them so much, you start to get to know guys on a one-on-one basis really, really well. And you can have, like you said, there might be a guy that needs to get gassed up in front of everybody. You know what I mean? Like, oh, dude, great job over there, man.
Yeah.
You're benching the 60s. Damn, dude. That's, and then there's some guys that you can chirp them a little bit. Like I'm at the complex this morning, and we have a guy who's just a workhorse, and he's throwing med balls, and then another guy comes up and throws it. I'm like, you're going to let this guy throw it higher than you? He's like, he's not throwing higher than me. I'm like, yeah, he is. And he wasn't. But then the next set, he goes out and he bumps his effort up even more. I'm like, oh, you sandbagging those last sets? He's like, no, dude, no. I'm going above and beyond. But you learn the intricacies of dealing with those guys, communicating with those guys. And then the other thing that I love that you're talking about is, like, the environment in the weight room tells you so much about what's going on in there. The music, I can specifically remember times where, like, I had a guy come in, he's pissed off, he's playing loud screamo music, and guys poke their head in and they're like, yeah, I'm not coming in right now, like, because I'm not going to lift as much weight as that guy. And then there's other times where, there's house music on and guys are bumping and, like, did somebody call me? Is it my time to lift? Like, it's just funny, you know what I mean, how that music and the volume and just the environment in the weight room, like, can bring people into it. It draws people into it. And you have to use that to your advantage, because you'll get a guy that's not a weight room guy pass by and look in like, hey, what's going on in there? And they'll poke their head in like, hey, come join us, man. Like, we're getting after it in here. And like, all right, let me go get my shoes and then I'll be back. And then they come in, they get a great session. So that environment is huge. And I think, like I said, the big advantage in pro ball is we're just together so much. Like, you can't hate anybody, because it will just wear you out every day to try to avoid that person. You might as well just confront it head on and just, hey, I don't like what you're doing. I'm sorry. Like, let's get better. How can I help you? Boom. And then you move on. So
at the bare minimum, it's going to build respect between the two of you. Like, that player is going to know that he can't get away with subpar effort. And anymore. They'll work for you just because they know that you want the best for them.
So kind of going along the line of injuries and rehab, the other question that you had sent me that you wanted to discuss was, with the prevalence of Tommy John surgery in baseball now, what is your general approach or philosophy when it comes to TJ rehab?
Yeah, so obviously TJ is going to be with us, forever, because the arm just wasn't meant to throw 95 to 104 or whatever Jordan Hicks throws. Like, top end velo is not meant for the arm. So we're going to deal with elbow injuries for as long as baseball's around. So we all need to, or not we all, but generally speaking, the rehab in my eyes is a humongous time. It's a big opportunity to take advantage of the injury. A lot of guys that get hurt and they get down in the dumps with it, whereas I try to spin it positive for them the first time I'm talking with them. It's, hey, you're getting a year now to build your body back. Think about all the times that you've played baseball, all the years that you've played baseball in your life. Have you ever had a year where you've had just no games, no travel, don't have to worry about going to the stadium that day? It's literally just you and building your body back to where it was, and then hopefully beyond. A lot of these guys, they don't have a big training age, or, there's always something they can improve on. There's not many guys where it's literally just, he's good. Just don't get him hurt. Just get him back to where he was. Most guys, it's, he can get bigger, he can get stronger, he can get more powerful. He has an injury that always keeps cropping up, like a hamstring injury maybe. Take the year long in rehab that you have and take advantage of it. Spin it positively, because the guy's going to be in the dumps, and let him know that you're on his side, you got his back, and you're going to get after it. Like, your body will change during this time, and you as the player will reap all the benefits of it. You get out of it what you put into it. Make sure to emphasize that to them as well. And then getting into the training aspect of it, in my opinion, you need to train as early as you can, when you can, and do it to the best of your ability. As soon as those stitches come out, as soon as that player is ready to start lifting, or is just prepared to sweat, like he's cleared and he can sweat, you either got to start your lifting with them, on the pitch shark or a safety squat bar, or even just, body weight squats, something again to build the foundation, because you're going to have, like I said, a year, maybe a little bit longer, depending on the time of the year that he blew out. You're going to have an extended period of time to build that mountain peak as high as you can. So you got to have a really good base. And to me, that starts at the very beginning. Week 2, week 3, I like to get them on the pitch shark. Have at it. We're going to load up your legs. We're going to get them stronger. And then whatever you can do for, core, you're going to do that as well. And, you're going to have to get really creative sometimes, because, not everybody has the same equipment. It's going to be different from organization or org to org, or, in the college setting or wherever you may be. Everything's going to be a little bit different. Obviously you have to protect the arm, but at the same time, you can't not train until you can train the arm. You know what I'm saying? If you wait until they're actually cleared to do anything with their injured arm, I mean, that's 4, 5, 6 months maybe that you just missed on a training window, where you could focus on the legs, on the core, on the other arm, because there is a little bit of a crossover effect, so you got to take advantage of that time. You got to crush the legs, you got to crush the core. And you, especially now with biomechanics coming to the forefront of things, now we're starting to understand how important single leg training is. As strength coaches, we really already knew it. We were already bought in. But now pitching coaches are starting to understand. The front office is starting to understand. Some more money is being invested into it. And now it's showing in the force plates. I wouldn't say definitively, but it's starting. There's a pretty strong correlation where guys who are putting more force into the rubber and then on their plant foot, those guys, generally speaking, they throw harder. And as strength coaches, that should be music to our ears, because we know, whatever force you put into the ground, the more force you put in, you'll run faster, you'll swing harder, you'll hit the ball further, you'll throw harder. Now is what's coming out. That's playing right into our hands. So if we can use that and we can communicate that effectively to the player and to the other people on the staff, you get after that single leg training with the players. And you build them up, and it'll also make your throwing program easier as well. So throw everything you got at them. Of course, be smart, have logical progressions with what you have. Don't just start back squatting on week 12. Have a progression that's going to help protect the arm, but also build the legs up. And same thing with core, same thing with training the non-injured arm. So with that, I'll touch on upper body training too. In my eyes, you got to throw everything you can at them. Of course, have logical progressions with it. Don't just say, hey, you're training your injured arm today. You're training your Tommy John arm today. Get after it. Because, the kid's not going to know. He's going to go and he's going to think, oh, sweet, I get to train today. I'm going to go and row what I used to row and dumbbell bench what I used to bench. And it's whoa, hey, you need to pump the brakes a little bit. And that's where you come in as the coach. You got to have your progressions. You got to have potentially maybe some grip restrictions for that guy on his injured arm. And that's where you need to sort of beat him to the punch a little bit there. You got to tell him what's going on, which is part of your job. And then as far as throwing everything you got at him, in my opinion, throughout their entire training process, they need to be doing dumbbell bench, incline bench, of course, dumbbell. I'm not going to advocate for doing a barbell bench press with a Tommy John guy. That's no. And then, landmine presses, rowing, everything that the player does in rehab or that they could do at an affiliate, they need to be doing in rehab. I'm not saying they need to dumbbell bench, the hundreds for reps, or they need to be rowing 125s for reps, but they need to be comfortable with doing those exercises. That way, when they go back to the affiliate, it's easy for them. It's easy. The strength coach at the affiliate could say, hey, we're doing dumbbell floor press today. And the player's gonna say, all right, cool. Push-ups, all right, cool. Rows, cool. Banded pull downs, whatever. The player's already been exposed to it. He understands how to do it correctly, and then you're good to go. Because if he's not ready, if he's not confident when he gets back to the affiliate with even lifting or with the lifting aspect of it, I failed him as the rehab strength coach. That's on me. And I would take that personally, just as a coach. I'm taking that personally if he gets to the affiliate and he's not comfortable doing something. So that's just my views on lower body and upper body. And then with conditioning, to me, it's on the back burner until you get to about the 105 phase, the longer phases, 105, 120. It's on the back burner for me. You'll do it once or twice a week. It'll probably be tempo runs because I like to do the high-low system. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, if you're throwing, you're also going to lift after you throw. And then Tuesdays and Thursdays, be maybe some tempo runs or, 100 calories on the assault bike, just something really just to get the blood flowing again, something that's nice and easy for them, because high-low system, you build them up, you break them down, you build them up, break them down, build them up, break them down. You can't always just be high, especially in rehab, because they're always going to be hurting. Their CNS is always going to be a little bit fired up because they're always going to hurt, or their shoulder's going to hurt. Something will hurt. Having gone through it, my elbow may feel great one day, your shoulder might hurt. Your elbow may be great one day, your back might hurt. There's always going to be something. So on my end of things, I try to keep the days where they're not throwing as least stressful as possible. That way, when they get back to the affiliate, everything's good to go. They're back on the hill. They're hopefully back to shoving, getting after it, making a name for themselves again. So, yeah, that's just broad stroke. I mean, that Tommy John rehab, and that's something I'm pretty passionate about. I mean, obviously, since I'm in this role, that could be a whole nother podcast, really, a whole nother presentation. So that's just broad strokes for me.
And I might hold you to that in the future, but for now, a couple of things here from your talk. Number one is it's not going away, right? And we don't need to shy away from it. I think the rehab process as a whole has come a long way, just in general, specifically with Tommy John, but even anything like ACL tears, hip replacements, it seems more and more that they're saying move around as early as you can, which is awesome because like you said, this is a huge window of time that's uninterrupted for them that they have never had in their playing career. And if they take advantage of it, that's truthfully in my mind, I've always thought that is guys come back better from Tommy John because they had time off to just focus on training, nutrition, sleep. They didn't have these other things. It was, we're going to get after it. We're going to make you a monster, and then you're going to build up your throwing. And when you do, your work capacity is going to be even higher. So that's the first thing for me. The second thing is I love what you said about, them going to the affiliate and being able to do what they do at the affiliate. And even if you're not a rehab strength coach, I've always pictured myself as when I send a guy up, whether I'm in AA, they're going to AAA, I'm in AAA, going to the big leagues, whatever it is, they need to be able to handle their work in the weight room and in conditioning because their other obligations are going to be greater the higher they go up, right? There's more media, The higher you go up, there's more outside stressors. The higher you go up, there's older guys that you have to deal with. And if we make the weight room and conditioning another stressor to them that they're uncomfortable with, we're just adding stuff to their plate that doesn't need to be there. So if I'm doing conditioning with a guy and we're doing whatever it is, we only do 5 sprints in AAA, and then in the big leagues, he's expected to do 8 sprints on a regular basis. Well, he's not prepared. So he needs to be prepared when he moves up in terms of whatever he's doing lifting, whatever he's doing conditioning, speed work, whatever it is. So that's one less stressor for him. And I've always looked at it that way, and it's very refreshing to hear you say that as the rehab guy. But again, I don't think that applies just to rehab. I think it's anybody. Like if you're at an affiliate, you should be preparing those players for when they move up, so they don't have to be a burden to the strength coach at the level above. They just come in, they get their work done, they don't cause any issues, and then they can figure out the other stuff on their own. So those were my 2 big ones. Oh, and then the other one, the third one was like you talk about, just because a guy had Tommy John doesn't mean they can't train the legs. And I've always heard other people who do rehab is like, you're not a broken body, right? It's just an injured part. It's not an injured body. Like if you take those 4 months off, 5 months, and you don't do anything, you're feeling sorry for yourself, you don't want to train, like you have a huge window of time of just why not train your legs? Your legs are not broke. There's no issue with them. And then, like you said, maybe you do have reoccurring hamstring things in the past, or low back, or, your neck gets messed up when you sleep, and you can fix those things while doing the rehab. And then you're taking down 2 birds with 1 stone. So all of that, I love it. And in the future, we will probably do a group podcast on just Tommy John, because like you said, that's like an hours and hours of talk that, you can get into the nitty gritty stuff about it. But I think in general, I love your thoughts on it and your training approach and just dealing with those guys. Like, hey, you got a long period of time, let's get after it. And when we come back, you're going to be surprised who you are.
Yep. 100%. Guys it's crazy. Like, and then also when guys leave rehab and they see guys come and they get back to their affiliates, people have like that idea of who they were. We had a guy get TJ, and then our doctor came in and looked at him after, I think it was like his 6-month checkup. And the doctor was like, whoa, like, who the hell are you? Like, you're like 20 pounds heavier than what you were just 6 months ago. Like, it's just, it's crazy how dudes change when they actually buy in, get after it.
Yeah, and it doesn't take much, honestly. Like a small change here, small change there, be a little more consistent with your sleep or your nutrition, and then before you know it, they're seeing those results, and then they're hungry for more. And they're like, oh, I still have 2 more months where I get to push myself like this. Like, I can't wait. I'm going to be a freak. And you can tell the guys that get after it, they come back absolute monsters.
Yep. You feed the beast, and then that plays back into building your culture up, because those guys are going to be at the forefront of it. It's not going to be the coach, in my eyes. It's going to be the players. The players are going to be your best marketing,
Yeah, and like you said, guys filter in and out all the time, and the Tommy John guys are there a long time. So if those guys are getting after it and they're setting the example, and then, you have an acute guy coming in, hamstring or something, and he sees the Tommy John guy, and the Tommy John guy's walking around with his chest out saying, hey, this is how we do stuff in rehab. You don't have to say anything. That guy's already policed the whole situation for you.
Yep, 100%. That's the goal, really.
That's the dream for all of us. It doesn't always work out that way, but we love to see it that way.
Yeah. What's the saying where it's like great teams police themselves? Like that's the same in the weight room.
Yeah, absolutely.
That environment will police itself.
Absolutely, 100%. In terms of continuing education resources, where are you going to stay sharp? Are you reading books, attending seminars, listening to podcasts? Where are you going to keep the sword sharp?
Yeah, really, for me, it's reading books and, I hate to say it, but like social media podcasts, because there's a wealth of information out there on social media. That's just, you got to be able to filter some things out with that. Like you got to go to, Zach Deacon at TCU. Sorry if I just butchered that name, but he's always a great one to go to. Ryan Gearhart, who I worked for at UGA, amazing content that he puts out. there's just certain guys you got to be able to go and find them on social media, and they put a lot of stuff out there. Whereas if you just read the same things they read, you take in what they put out, like, you're going to be a lot better off for it. So those are just a couple guys there on social media. Tread Athletics is another good one. I follow them. I watch their YouTube videos when they break down guys' mechanics. Because now I'm kind of in a mechanics wormhole with pitchers, trying to figure out how I can optimize their training. But books, I'm mostly right now in like I'm trying to get better at being a good leader. Being able to work with others and be more collaborative with things. I'm reading the Servant Leadership Roadmap right now. I just got done with the All Blacks. What's it called? Legacy, I think is what it's called. I just got done with that. It was a really great book. I would highly suggest that. It was just really stuck with me about how guys picked up the slack no matter where they were at within the organization. There's one story where they're talking about after a win, they had, made a big mess in the locker room, like after the post-game meal, and they had all just cleaned up or whatever. And the best player on the team, I forget his name, but the best player on the team, who's obviously being with the All Blacks, he's one of the best players in the world. He's there like he's mopping up, like he's cleaning up after the team. And like, that's one of the best players. That'd be like Derek Jeter staying around after a World Series win and help clean everything up. That really stuck with me about how, just doing things the right way, no matter where you're at in the organization. So I think that was something great from the All Blacks book that really stuck with me. And then podcasts, obviously this one, I think if you're in pro baseball and you're not listening to this podcast, like, you're doing yourself a disservice, honestly, because these are your peers, and you can learn from them just as well as you can from somebody who's, 30 years deep and they have like 20 books to their name. So this podcast, Cressy Baseball Development, he puts out some good ones. And then The Art of Coaching, going back to communication, Brett Bartholomew, he's really hitting the nail on the head right now. He's really emphasizing how it's not just all sets and reps. It's not just all exercise physiology. It's more about connecting with people. And I mean, obviously, like I said, this is a people first business. Brett Bartholomew's putting that content out there. Like, you need to listen to it or you need to read it, because he's also got his book. So yeah, that's sort of what I'm going with right now for continuing ed. So
first and foremost, thank you for the kind words. I think we talked about it a little bit earlier. It's like there's very specific things that we deal with in this environment. And that's why I like this podcast, is because when I talk to the guests, I know that they've gone through similar things that I have. And so when I bounce ideas off of them, it's coming from that place, right? Like, if I talk to a college strength coach, they might not get that we play every day, that we practice every day, that we ride the bus, that we eat peanut butter and jelly. Like, all of us that I've talked to, whether it's a big league guy, that's been around, or a new minor league guy, like, we've all kind of been in this together type of deal. So that's why I really enjoy these chats, because I know that the things that I write in my notes are directly applicable to my real world job, because you've gone through similar things that I have, right? So if you say it and it worked in your setting, it has a good chance of working in mine, because we're in a similar setting. And then the other thing is with social media, right, is like, we touched on this earlier, and you mentioned it now, is like, you need to find those people that put the good content out and filter out some of the other stuff. One of my big knocks with social media is like, anybody can put anything out, right? Like, I saw one the other day. I don't remember the name of the training, and I had never seen it. And I looked at it and I was like, this is like a cult. And I was like, what is going on here? And like, it just didn't make sense to me. And I mean, first of all, I'm not just discarding it. Like, it might be the next big thing. I don't know. I didn't look into it enough. But again, you have to filter things where it's like, I know Zach at TCU. I interned down there, and Zach's the man. And Zach's been the man since before he blew up on social media. When I was there, it was like, we all knew it was like a matter of time before he put himself out there and really, stepped up. But there's guys like that like, their content is always good. And when you watch it, you're going to take something from it. And then there's some people that are doing it just for the likes and for the follows. Yeah. And So you have to be able to filter that for sure. And then with Brett Bartholomew's stuff, like, again, you talk about, the art of coaching and the communication aspect and being able to relay things to your players is just, again, we've beat on it a couple of times now, but we're together every day. Like, you have to be able to effectively communicate with guys or you are going to get swallowed in this game. It's going to be really hard for you.
Yep.
So we've been at it a while, man, and I don't want to take all of your day, although I am enjoying the talk and I can talk this stuff all day. But lightning round, 4 questions, as long or as short as you want, and then I promise I'll let you go. You in?
Yeah, I'm in. Let's do it.
Okay, first question, who is your biggest influence in the field of strength and conditioning?
Ryan Gearhart, no doubt, at University of Georgia. He's the baseball strength coach there, and he was the first person that I worked for coming out of college after I graduated, and it was, eye-opening and mind-blowing just seeing the intensity and the passion and just everything that went into being an actual great strength conditioning coach. Like, he always had my back with everything, and he really showed me the ropes. Like, this is what it takes to prepare. This is what you need to learn. These is how you need to reflect upon your own coaching on any given day. Like, this is what it takes. Like, it's a lot of work, but at the same time, he handled it, because I'm sure I drove him insane sometimes, but he handled it amazing. Like, I don't think I would have been able to handle myself at that time. And it was jaw-dropping some days just seeing how well he was coaching and how he would, command the floor. Because that was something I struggled with coming out of undergrad, is like my presence with things. And he was the perfect guy to watch and see how he commanded the floor, his presence. Like, everybody knew he was in charge, and without him even saying a word. Like, it was awesome working for him. Like, he's by far the biggest influence.
Yeah, that's how Zach was for me. Like, I was, really young in my grad school days, and I didn't really know any better. And my head guy at grad school was a collegiate strength coach of the year also, and super good in his own right. And then I went to TCU. I had read some of Zach's blogs, and I was like, I want to work for this guy and just see. And it was the same thing for me. I was like, God, this guy commands the floor like nobody's business. He's sharp as it gets. The guys respect him. Like, you can just tell when you're in a room and guys respect the strength coach and just the way they look at him, and like, just, hey, and then everybody's like, oh, we need to pay attention. Like, one word, and he's got everybody's attention. It's really, really cool.
Yep.
So that experience is priceless, man. I can't trade it for the world. I am who I am because of those type of experiences, for sure.
Yeah.
Second one from me, one piece of equipment to train with, what would it be?
Could I have bumpers to go with the barbell? Like,
yeah,
that's technically
of course.
like one thing. If not, then it'd be like kettlebells, because you can do kettlebells or like center mass bells, because you can do anything with those. If that's
I had
that's
you
my
pegged
go-to.
as a barbell guy. I've seen your home gym
Yeah.
situation on Instagram. I'm like, he's a barbell guy for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
Biggest accomplishment professionally and or personally?
Yeah, I'll start with professional. I mean, getting this role, earning my way up the ranks and getting this role is probably first or second on professional, just because it's something that, I went through TJ myself, and ever since that point, like, going through that process is what opened up my eyes to this field, and being able to help other people going through it, like, and help them through the weight room. So being the rehab strength coach for a professional baseball team, that's been my goal since I went through my Tommy John 10 years ago. So that's probably the biggest one, or second biggest. It's right up there with the CSCCA certification, just because of all the time and preparation that goes into that. And then you're sitting at a table getting interviewed basically by giants in the field. Like, I remember for my CSCA or CSCCA, like, questioning, Ken Manny was directly across from me. John Sanderson was to my left. There were 2 other directors at the table that I'm blanking on their names right now, but it was like Ken Manny's just looking me in the eyes, squaring me up, and he asked me a question. I'm just like, holy crap, like this is legit right now, like, because if you mess up one thing, you're done. So that's just the preparation it takes for that. You obviously got to have the knowledge back up behind it, and then having to go through the nerves of things. Because I was really nervous going through it because I knew who those men were, and I mean it took a lot out of me. So those two things professionally, personally, just probably my wife and my two girls. I don't know how my wife is still around with me. She's been with me since high school, going 13 years together this year, maybe 14. And I don't know how she puts up with me sometimes. So her and then my two beautiful daughters, like they're amazing. It's everything I could have ever asked for is in those three girls. So.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. I love it. My wife and I have been together for over 10 years, and I wonder all the time too why she she sticks around just with my personality, and then with this lifestyle combined. I'm like, oh man, you're a saint for the sacrifices you make.
100%.
Last one from me. Any career other than strength and conditioning, what would you choose?
I'd be a pitching coach if I could choose. That's what I would do. I'd probably still be in pro baseball, which would drive my wife insane, just like you just touched on. So. But that's where I would be. I'd be a pitching coach, hands down.
Yeah, you can't get away from the game, no matter how hard you try.
Yep.
So, John, I appreciate you coming on, man, and opening up and sharing with me, and like I said, adding your own thoughts to my general outline. I thought it was a really good talk, and I think a lot of people are going to take away from this. If people want to get in touch with you, where can they get more? Is social media the best place, or is there a better place to reach out?
Yeah, social media is probably the best. I don't know my Twitter handle. I don't know what that is. Instagram, I'm on that a lot more. I think it's like JT Perry16, something along those lines. Maybe there's an underscore at the beginning before the J. But that's probably the better place to reach me or see just what's going on in my life. So yeah, those are two spots for social media.
I'll find them and I'll tag them in the show notes. That's no problem at all. But again, thank you for coming on, spending, over an hour with me, and we'll be talking real soon.
Awesome. Sounds good. I appreciate the time.
All right, everybody, that concludes this episode with John. I hope you enjoyed this one. I'm super glad that he sent me the questions he did and the discussion points that he sent. I think the talk went really, really well, and I think there's a ton that you can take from this episode. 3 things that I took from John: communication is vital for strength coaches, think critically to apply concepts to your environment, and rehab can be a valuable time to make positive physical changes. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll talk to you again on the next one.